And of course, the number one thing people asked me about this summer was what happened to Stephen Colbert at CBS. CBS, all of a sudden, out of the blue, claimed the Late Show was losing $40 million a year, and then miraculously got FCC approval to sell their company, which is what they wanted. And I guess that wasn't enough for El Presidente, because he posted, the word is, and it's a strong word at that, Jimmy Kimmel is next to go in the untalented late night sweepstakes, which is alarming because I don't know if you know this, Jimmy Kimmel is me.
Thank everybody, and in particular, God.
Remember God? The guy who abandoned us on January 20th of this year? God grabbed his keys and left, exchanged us for another world, I guess? I don't know. You know, there's a rumor making the rounds this weekend that
Trump being on the receiving end of comedy is like watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat, only for the rabbit to bite him and hop off stage. Jimmy Kimmel and Josh Johnson didn't just roast him. They turned his entire presidency into a blooper reel. Their punchlines land harder than any policy critique because they don't need to debate. They simply hold up a mirror and let the absurdity of his ego tantrums and desperate need for validation speak for itself.
Oh, this is getting to him because he did something today that he rarely does. He said nothing all day. There were no press conferences, no cabinet meetings, no public signings, no chats with reporters on the lawn. He holed up in his office all day long. He took one phone call from NBC News this morning. They asked about the letter. He said, I don't comment on something that's a dead issue. Really? See, you're still screaming about the election in 2016.
But trying to shut down the release of the files only makes them more interesting. So over the last week, Trump has been throwing every distraction he can at us. And I want to go through some of them to show you how desperate he's getting. Let's start with his go-to distraction. Obama!
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. Irrefutable proof that Obama...
If you're enjoying this video, please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Trump's problem is that he built his brand on being untouchable, the man who claims to outsmart everyone in the room. Yet Kimmel and Johnson exposed how paper-thin that illusion really is. Every time he demands to be taken seriously, comedians reveal just how unserious he truly is. Power can command attention, but it cannot force respect. That's why the Oval Office, instead of elevating him, became the world's most expensive comedy stage. One where the star doesn't realize he's the punchline.
And shortly thereafter, Fallon will be gone. These are people with absolutely no talent who are paid millions of dollars for, in all cases, destroying what used to be great television. It's really good to see them go, and I hope I played a major part in it. Oh, you delicate, chubby little teacup. Did we hurt your feelings?
Kimmel has mastered the art of puncturing Trump's balloon-sized ego by making every self-congratulatory boast sound like an audition tape for a reality show nobody asked to see. He shows how Trump treats governance like a spin-off of his old TV career, except with fewer ratings and far more chaos. When Kimmel roasts him, it isn't just comedy, it's demolition. He strips away the carefully polished image of authority and reveals the insecure man underneath, constantly rewriting his own story to dodge the truth.
Fox seems to be keen on sweeping this birthday book under the rug. This is the Fox News homepage this morning. Inside Epstein's infamous birthday book, Clinton's note, poolside candidates, and bizarre animal pics. You click it, you find Clinton's note, you find animal photos, you find poolside candidates, and nothing else. No mention of the President of the United States. They didn't have a single story on Trump's dirty doodle this morning, but they did have all the details on Paula Deen getting canceled in 2000.
Josh Johnson, with his calm and razor-sharp delivery, adds another layer to the takedown. His humor thrives on pointing out the ridiculous with such deadpan precision that Trump's bluster feels even louder and emptier. Johnson doesn't need to shout or exaggerate. He simply shows how bizarre it is that the most powerful man in the country spends his time battling comedians instead of governing. The more Johnson highlights this contrast, the clearer it becomes that Trump's real fight isn't with policy. It's with punchlines.
The problem with this distraction is that it's so old, Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't date it, all right? Trump has been going after Obama for decades. He's going to need something else, something juicy.
The White House offering an unexpected health update on President Trump, revealing that he recently underwent a battery of tests and has now been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency.
Doctors tell us it means there isn't adequate blood flow to the veins in the legs, which can cause...
What makes their combined roast so devastating is that it cuts right to the core of Trump's identity. He doesn't just want to be president. He wants to be adored, worshipped, and treated like the star of a never-ending show. But Kimmel and Johnson remind everyone that the show has no script, and the star is bombing. Every rally turns into an open mic night gone wrong, with Trump mistaking chants for applause and anger for entertainment. Comedy lays bare the gap between who he thinks he is and what everyone else sees.
We make jokes about you. I thought you were against cancel culture. I thought that was like their whole thing. When did you become so woke? Unfortunately for Frosty the Snowflake, the only place we are going is to New York. Once again, we are packing up our Hailey Bieber smoothies and headed to Brooklyn for a week of shows at BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, starting September 29th, ending October 3rd.
Trump sees himself as a natural comedian, cracking jokes at rallies and soaking up the laughter of loyal supporters. But in front of a real comedy audience, the reaction shifts. Kimmel knows that timing and wit matter more than volume, while Trump delivers punchlines without realizing he is the joke. Desperate for laughs, his ego traps him in a cycle of responding, feeding comedians fresh material every time. Once hailed as a dealmaker but leaving behind bankruptcies and chaos, he becomes an easy target. Kimmel transforms his failures into comedy, proving that Trump is less a leader and more a running gag.
The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends and gross friends. This book, Trump says that he wasn't part of, contains some of the most disturbing drawings maybe ever. I don't know which one of his buddies did this, but on one side, the unknown artist depicts a man who I think is Jeffrey Epstein giving lollipops and balloons to young girls. That's in 1983. The next page has him 20 years later relaxing and enjoying some sun. I'm not sure. But if you zoom in close, you can find Bill DeWaldo.
Johnson sharpens the ridicule by using everyday logic to expose Trump's absurd actions, like rewriting history in real time. His humor shows how bizarre Trump appears when stripped of grandeur, turning nonsense into obvious failure. What opponents struggle to explain, comedians capture in a single joke. Laughter that silences excuses. The Oval Office feels less like power and more like a stale performance, with Trump pacing, repeating lines, and begging for applause. Kimmel spots the desperation. Johnson hears the contradictions, and together they slice through the spin. In the end, Trump can't outshout a punchline or rewrite a laugh.
Trump has been doing everything that he can to keep those files under wraps. He's even got his friends in Congress trying to help. Mike Johnson shut down the House just to avoid a vote on the release of the files. Yeah. Do you understand that they clear Congress out for the summer like they found a dookie in the pool?
This kind of roasting doesn't just humiliate Trump in the moment. It shapes his legacy. Historians may debate policies, but people will remember the jokes about his insecurities and blunders. Mockery on late-night TV lasts longer than political power. Kimmel and Johnson expose the gap between Trump's claims and his failures, turning his fear and vanity into endless satire. Each overreaction only fuels more laughter, trapping him in a cycle of ridicule. Johnson highlights the absurdity of a president feuding with entertainers, while Kimmel shows how his obsession with comedians makes him look less like a leader and more like a fragile celebrity.
The other thing everyone kept asking me about over the summer is if I'm moving to Italy. Because I mentioned on the Sarah Silverman podcast that I got dual citizenship through my mother, who has Italian citizenship. And oh man, the MAGA gang went nuts.
Late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel confirming he has obtained Italian citizenship.
Jimmy Kimmel's so scared he's drafting an escape plan.
We could see Jimmy Kimmel evidently leave sometime soon. He would say ciao.
How is he Italian? There's no way he's Italian.
The brilliance of Kimmel and Johnson's approach is that they don't need to invent material. Trump provides it himself. Press conferences turn into comedy bits, rallies into skits, and tweets into punchlines. Trump may think he's setting the stage, but they're the directors shaping how people remember him. Humor cuts through defenses, bypasses spin, and exposes the core. Attention transformed into ridicule, which Trump cannot stand. Unlike critics weighed down by analysis, comedians deliver instant, unforgettable clarity. When Kimmel makes policy into slapstick or Johnson reframes scandal as parody, the truth lands effortlessly, stripped of pretense and revealed as ridiculous.
Our president, even though he made a fortune in crypto this year, Trump did not crack the Forbes top 100. Donald Trump clocked in at number 201, or as the White House described it, first place plus 200. But he did take a big lead jump. He's up 118 spots from last year. Trump, according to Forbes, has grifted $3 billion since he won the election, just as the founding fathers intended.
What Trump fails to understand is that ridicule outlasts speeches and debates. A senator's lecture fades, but a sharp joke survives through clips, memes, and conversations. Kimmel and Johnson exploit this permanence, turning every rant and gesture into comedy that spreads faster than any official statement. The real sting is how humor flips power. Trump, once obsessed with dominating the spotlight, now looks clownish when comedians reshape his performance. His gestures become setups, his bravado becomes punchlines, and his power slips away, not stolen, but surrendered through his own excess.
With distractions, what it looks like when they're fed to the media and what it looks like when they don't work. Because right now, Donald Trump is desperate to move on from the Epstein files, but the story is only building.
A major development just in. The Department of Justice says it is trying to set up a meeting with longtime Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison.
The Justice Department now putting out a new statement and saying if Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say.
Wait. You haven't talked to Ghislaine Maxwell? Epstein's accomplice? The woman he's in the most?
Every culture has understood the power of laughter. The court jester could say what advisors dared not. Sharpened humor cuts deeper than criticism, and that's exactly what Kimmel and Johnson embody. Their comedy dismantles illusions in ways policy talk never could. Once you've laughed at someone in power, it becomes difficult to take them seriously again. For Trump, who relies on appearing serious, this erosion is devastating. Their humor adapts across platforms. TV monologues slice through theatrics, while the internet amplifies humiliation. They also master pacing, letting Trump's grand declarations build tension before puncturing them with absurdity.
Founding father still has an Epstein-y little problem on his hands. He avoided the press all day yesterday until dinner time. At dinner, he rounded up the closest thing he has to friends to take a field trip to Joe's Seafood, a restaurant, to make a big show out of how safe Washington is since he turned it into a militarized zone.
Here we are. We're standing right in the middle of D.C., which, as you know, about over the last year was a very unsafe place. Over the last 20 years, actually, it was very unsafe. This city, here I am, standing out in the middle of the street. I wouldn't have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago.
And I also wouldn't have done it tonight without the 85 Secret Service agents.
Timing is everything, and Trump unknowingly provides the setups that Kimmel and Johnson deliver with precision. Their brilliance lies not just in punchlines, but in the patience to let his theatrics unravel before striking. This doesn't merely embarrass, it reshapes how audiences view him. Instead of fearing his bluster, they expect amusement. The spectacle itself becomes a punchline, and Trump a recurring character in a comedy he cannot control. The danger is permanence. Mockery sticks. Politicians can rebrand, celebrities can pivot, but once laughter defines you, it lingers. Opposition can be challenged, but comedy cannot be debated. You can't argue with a punchline.